Alright guys, today I'm going to show you how you can import a model into Amnesia and create it as your custom inventory item, where you pick it up and you have it located or stored in your inventory until you can double click on the icon and use it on an object. And it's not too tricky. Most of the things, it's not really that tricky. It just takes some knowing to know what to do, but it's not really that tricky to do. Once you have the model, you can import it to Amnesia and you can select it as an item in your inventory, or for your inventory rather, in the model editor. Then you can basically use it right away after you have assigned an icon to it. And the icon could be the trickiest part, because the icon, it's easy to get an icon that does not really look pretty. In the game it could look like it has a frame around it, like a square. It could be glowing, it could have many glitchy lines or whatever. The icon does not look good unless you do some very specific things that I'm going to show you a little later. Or actually I'm probably going to start with that, but yeah, so basically I already have a video on how to create a model that is compatible, where you will be using Maya 2011, but of course I'm gonna assume that you already have a model, and if not, then you should be able to create one or get one somewhere else. But I mean, that's up to you where you get the model. I have created an example model right here, a wrench actually. It looks like this, and it's not a particularly good model, but it's a working model. I just made it for an example. So it's a simple wrench, and it has, this is the icon, which has a specific resolution. And then there's the texture file right there. So yeah, I suppose we could just get started. First of all, of course you want to import this to Amnesia, and you're going to be using the model editor and everything like that to create it. But before we do that, we're gonna make the icon, and to make the icon you need to do something very specific, as I said. And I'm going to be using Photoshop in this video to demonstrate what you need to do. And I know it is possible with GIMP, although I am not certain how, because I don't use GIMP. But GIMP is free, so if you don't have Photoshop, use GIMP, because GIMP works. I can confirm it, because I have friends who use GIMP and have gotten it to work. So first of all, let me just take that out of there, because this is not the actual raw file that I'm going to be using, since I need to import it to or open it in Photoshop, and then I'm gonna do the specific settings. Right now it's just a PNG, and it cannot be a PNG. Although it's possible to use a PNG, it won't look pretty in the PNG file format, so therefore you don't want to use that. Now let's just zoom in. It's a very simple, just an icon of the wrench, and I'm going to note down the resolution of the file. It has to be 55 by 60 or 60 by 55, depending on how you look at it. 60 by 55 width and height. So this is the exact resolution that it needs to be, and I believe if it is not this resolution, it might not actually work at all. Or it might, I don't remember exactly, but I do remember one part that when I was messing around with this a long time ago, when I was assigning a file that was not working properly, the item, I couldn't even pick it up. It would have the pick up icon, and like when you hover over an item in Amnesia, it would have the pick up icon there, but I would not be able to click on it. But anyways, once you have the set resolution, you can just draw whatever icon you want. What I did was just import the texture and edit it a little bit and resize it. That's pretty simple. So here I have the icon, and right now it's a very basic PNG file format. But basically what you want to do to make it work in the game is you need to define an alpha channel, or else it will have that ugly box around it. And if the alpha channel is not made properly, it'll have glitchy lines going everywhere. So first of all, what I am going to do here, I'm going to right click on this little square right here and select pixels, basically just selecting everything in this layer. And I'm going to copy it with Command C, Control C if you're on Windows. I'm on Mac, by the way, and this works fine on Windows too. And then you're going to click on the channels box, which is right next to layers. If you have modified, what did I do? If you have modified any of your like Photoshop settings or like preferences, then I can't exactly tell you where they are, but hopefully you know where they are. go to channels, and if you don't have an alpha channel, you gotta create a new one. If you create a new down here, create new channel, it should already be, the next one should be alpha right there. And in this layer, you want to paste in what you have right there. And you probably still have the selection around what you already did, which is good, because what you want here is you don't want to have the texture in the alpha channel, you want to have it just white. So what you can do here is, if you have white selected, or you can just select white anywhere really. If you have white selected as the primary color, you can do Alt backspace, and that should fill the selection with that color. And now I'm gonna deselect, and it looks just like that. And basically that's the alpha channel. And what an alpha channel is, basically where there's white is where the texture is going to be visible. Where there's black, it's not going to be visible, so it's going to be transparent. That means it's going to cut out everything that is not colored right here, or not black basically. And whatever is gray, it's going to make semi-transparent, so it's going to be fading around the edges, which is a nice effect. So if you go back to layers now and click on this, it might look red, like, because if you go on the alpha channel and have it enabled like that, or visible, everything's gonna look red. And this just looks really strange. It doesn't really affect it much, but it looks very strange. So you might as well click on the little eye and disable it, or well, rather turn off the visibility, because you're not disabling it. It's still there. It's just that it won't interfere with any of the editing. Now there's one more thing that we need to do, and that is create a new layer. I'm gonna put it below the other one, and select the black primary color. Just select darkest black, 100% black, and do the same thing, Alt backspace, to fill the selection or layer with that color. So it will have a black background right now, and this is how the file is that we want it to look. And let's try exporting this right now. And I'm gonna go on save, or save as rather, and the format needs to be the Targa format, and this should come with Photoshop, and it should come with GIMP as well. And it needs to be the Targa format, and make sure you have selected the alpha channels, and make sure just name it anything. It should be a TGA extension. This is the file that Amnesia uses for most of its texture files, except for DDS texture files, but make sure you have alpha channels and Targa format, and click save. It comes with a little prompt. I have not gotten it to work with any of the other ones for this resolution. I've only gotten it to work with the 32 bits per pixel. So I recommend selecting that one, although it makes a little larger file size, but I have not gotten the transparency to work on 24. So therefore, and you don't really need the compression. So let's just save that. It's a very small file size anyways, so let's just close off Photoshop and not save the project. And now I'm opening it with a little preview, and as you can see, it does not have that black box around it, even though it does in the little mini preview. But when you actually open the file, it counts with the alpha channel, and this is the part that is going to be visible. So now that we have wrench.tga, I'm going to actually name it wrench icon. Apparently icon. I'm gonna put that file in the wrench folder. So now we have that there instead of the other one. This is also the same kind of deal with the TGA and the black thing. So here we have the icon. Simply as that, it's transparent, but it doesn't look transparent in the file itself, but it is going to be transparent. So I'm gonna put that file up there, and now let's go over to the part where we actually import this and make it into an item you can pick up. So open up your Amnesia directory, and this could be different depending on what system you're on and everything, but I have a shortcut right here. If you have it on Steam, you can right click it, go properties and local files, browse, and you should be able to pop up this little folder right here with the launchers, editors, and all the folders. So now if you want to use this in a custom story, you need to still import it into your entities folder, but you need to copy it over to your like custom stories folder when you're done with it, when you're actually going to export your story, because it doesn't matter where this file is located when you run the game. It could be located in your custom story folder, but when you're creating the game, it needs to be in the entities folder for it to show up in the editors. So that is just a little note that you need to make sure. that you know of. So now open up your entities folder and create a new folder if you haven't already, and name it custom, or it could be named practically anything, but I like to name it custom. It also, since it's on C, makes it makes it appear quite far up on the list, which is handy. So put the folder of your everything, the model and everything, all the files inside there. Here we have the wrench, and oh, I did not mean to open that, but we have the model, texture, and the icon. Now open up your editors, the model viewer. Make sure you start off with the model viewer, because or else the model will not be visible in the other editors, because this file, this editor will generate some files for you. So open up the wrench model.dae, and right now it looks very strange. As you can see, this is, I'm not sure if this is a bug or not, because I have noticed this is something that seems to happen quite a lot to me when I export models from Maya. It appears like this to start off with. All I have to do to fix this little bug or whatever it is to re-export the model. I'm not sure why this exactly happens. Let me just open up that project and re-export it. I'm not sure why this happens. It's a very strange error, and I'm not sure if it's a problem with the Maya export or the Amnesia editors. It could be either, really. But if anyone actually have encountered this and it hasn't been answered by then, feel free to, well, please do tell me if you know anything. Let me open a scene, the wrench, and all you have to do is to go and file, export it all, or whatever, and I'm gonna save it on my desktop, call it wrench model, which is the same as I did last time, and the same settings as last time, and export, and that should be it. So I'm just gonna close it again. Now I have this model again, and I'm gonna put it in there and replace it. And it doesn't really make any difference at all, which is why I think this is really strange. It doesn't make any difference to the file or anything. But when I actually open it the second time, it should work properly. See? Now it's properly proportioned, or proportionized, or whatever. So it has the correct ratio of the model. I don't know, as I said, I don't know what is going on with that. But anyways, after you have imported the model and it looks correct in this viewer, this model viewer, this will have generated some files. Just press escape to quit this window. It should have generated an MSH mesh file and a MAT material file. And these are going to be required if you're going to use it in the other editors. So after you've just opened it and looked at it for a second, open up the model editor. In this editor, you're going to want to import the model and create the attributes for this model so that you can use it in your editor, your levels and everything, so that it knows what this model is supposed to be. Because, I mean, it's a computer. It can't exactly determine everything that this model is. Well, like, maybe some programs do, but I mean, that would be advanced. Oh, exactly. You're not going to go on open. Go on import mesh, and it's already located in model wrench, or wrench model, the folder, but you want to go on import mesh and find the file, load it, and it should be right here. Now this particular file is a little big, so I'm just going to resize it a little smaller, about there. Let's do that. Should be good. Now, first of all, we're going to want a collision box in this thing. So the collision boxes are actually right here, shapes. I'm going to be using a box, simply enough. Just use the grid to snap it, create it, turn off the grid to define it a little more carefully. It's going to be like this. It needs to be kind of precise, but don't make the collision box too small, or else it like models with too small collision boxes are very easy to like fall through planes and glitch a little bit, so just be aware of that. So just make a rough like estimate of how big you want it to be. This is actually pretty good, so you don't need to do anything more than this. Once you've done that, if you used more than one shape, you just use shift click and select multiple, and then you click create body. And now it should have been turned green, which is now it's a physical body. And you don't need to assign the model to it if it's only one model. If you have submodels or submeshes, you need to assign them to the different bodies, but if you don't, then it should be pretty straightforward. Go on the body tab of the box itself, and here you can select the material you want it to be. Now in my case, I want it to be metal, because a wrench is made of metal. You want to turn the mass up to something, because if it doesn't have mass, it doesn't have gravity. If it doesn't have gravity, it'll just be floating there. It'll be a little boring. So I'm going to turn the mass up to 5. Now, I don't recommend using a mass below like 2 or 1, because that is, again, it's pretty glitchy in the engine. The physics engine in Amnesia is kind of fragile, so be careful of that. 5 should be a fairly good mass for this sized object. And these you can define if you want. I'm not going to explain them. Some things down here you might want to turn off, like collide character and pushed by character gravity, so that you step on it, it doesn't fly everywhere, because again with small object that has a very high chances of glitching and maybe falling through the floor and stuff like that, so you want to turn those off. And yeah, so that should be mostly it. Actually, this is it for the model itself. So now you can export it and save it and open it in the model editor or level editor, and well, you can look at it. It's there. You can't really grab it, you can't really pick it up until you go on user defined variables up here on settings. And this is the type it's going to be. This is by default, it's a static prop, and therefore you can't really do anything with it in the editor or in the game if you actually just export it right now. So now you can select anything in here. If you want to be able to grab it, select object and select subtype grab if you want to pick it up. But if you want to pick it up into your inventory, you select item right here. Now most of these settings you can keep default. The subtype right here, if you keep it at puzzle is kind of just like a generic item. What I mean by puzzle is that you're going to use this item in some sort of puzzle way. Like if you're going to use it to break a lock, in some way that is a puzzle, but it's just another word for a generic item, because it's not exactly a note or a lantern or anything like that, but you can theoretically make custom lanterns, health, sanity potions, oil and tinderboxes and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm gonna keep it at puzzle though. And I'm going to keep all of these default except at the bottom, all the way down here. Sub item type name. This is going to be the name that you put in your extra english.lang file to give this a name. Like basically, if you were to place a key in your level and you give it a custom subtype name, sub item type name in the level editor, you can give it a custom name, the key. If you don't, it'll have the default name, which is like, for example, machine room key. But yeah, that is also already defined in the english.lang of the actual game, but the extra english.lang includes things that are added to it. Therefore, I'm going to put just simply wrench in here, and that is going to give the name of the wrench. It's not what is displayed, it's just the variable that refers to what is displayed. So when you pick it up, it's going to say picked up wrench, but only after you define that in the extra english.lang. Image file. Now this one is also very important, as I said earlier with the TGA files. Navigate to the icon that you made, custom wrench icon. Load that file, and it should just say the name right there. And yeah, so just make sure that the file is done correctly, and if it doesn't, you will easily notice that in the game. Now the pick sound, this is just a simple sound effect when you pick it up. Like the generic sound is, for example, when you pick up a tinderbox, it plays a generic sound. For example, when you pick up a health potion, you are getting the potion sound effect. There are many different sound effects that you can use right here, but usually you want to use the generic one if you don't really know what to use. Unless it's like glass or book, then or a key, then it could be a little easier, but I'm just going to use generic. And the last thing you don't really need to worry about, I don't actually know everything that this thing does, so I'm just going to leave it be. exit off the window, save as, and it should already have filled out what you need, so just click save file. And right in the folder right next to it, it should have generated the .ent entity file. And that file is required for you to be able to open it in the level editor, which is what we're going to be using next. Now, open up a map. I have a test map, I believe this is the one I used. Yeah, it's just a very simple map that I've loaded, so I'm simply just going to show you that it does work. So in here, we have an empty map, spawn point, light value, everything, it's just a map. Go on your entities tab and select the customs that should be listed now after you created that folder in your entities folder, because entities is just a list of all the folders within your entities folder, and custom should be listed if you created that. If you named it something else, it should also be listed here somewhere. Sometimes it might be listed at the bottom. I don't know, I don't really know when it does. I noticed it did, but maybe that was only with the updated patch, the beta patch, I don't know. Anyways, open that. It should list all the models inside, and right now the model, let's see, yeah, the preview was really strange. I don't know why it does that. It's like a box. That was actually the first model that I created. It must have stuck with it. First just a test model, but anyways, it looks fine in the game. So here we got the model, the wrench right there. I'm just gonna rotate it a little bit so you see it a little better maybe. Yeah, so here we have the wrench. Simply enough, it's just floating in the air right there, right in front of our spawn, and I'm gonna save the map and open it in the game. So let's check that out. Start game. I realize this video is kind of long. I don't really like making really long videos, but hopefully you learned something in this video. There you go. It fell down on the floor. And it has that icon of it. And actually, one thing I forgot about, the extra english.lang file. I believe I already done it, since I was already testing with this, but if you probably haven't done this yet, go back to your actual custom story folder, right here. This is the one that I just loaded, with the maps and the settings and everything. Extra english.lang. You want to open this file, and if you have been messing with keys before, which you probably should have if you're actually making a custom item, you should know how the default ones work. You need to add a name tag to it, or you don't need to, but you probably want to, and this is how. So in your extra english.lang, you want to create the category inventory, which you probably should already know how to, and then you want to create the entry name with the item name underscore wrench in my case, which should be the same as what you put in the variable name in the settings, user defined variables, yes, in the model editor on the wrench item itself. So at the bottom there, right before the icon, you put the text string that is going to be the variable or the alias for what is actually displayed, and this is what's actually displayed. And therefore, I just wrote a little description here. It's a wrench, and it's a tool for tightening nuts. Yeah, that's just a little description I wrote. Of course, the item name and item desk need to have the same extension right here, underscore wrench, or whatever you named it. And after that, don't forget to close the category. Don't forget that. Close the file, and since I've already done that when the game loaded, I don't need to reload it. But you would have to reload it if you edited after you did all this. But now, let's pick it up. It says picked up wrench right there. Go into your inventory, and here we have the icon right here. And it does not have an ugly black box around it. And as you can see, some of the black boxes are a little weird, where they only appear when you actually hover over something that it will glow on, like an object. I don't actually have an object in this area. Like if I were to just click now, it says no object to use on, but if you click it on an object, it says cannot use on this object, but it will also be glowing. And if it has a black box around the glowing, it's something wrong with the alpha channel. So be sure to be very careful with the alpha channel and everything like that. Hopefully you get this all working, and that should be everything for this video and tutorial. And I really hope you enjoy this tutorial and found it helpful in any way, shape or form. And if you did, I would really appreciate if you would like the video. It motivates me to make more of these tutorials. And other than that, I think that was everything, so I will thank you for watching, and I will see you later.